The Nation Leadership Forum, as always, is a platform that creates an interface between state actors, non-state actors and the general public to deliberate on emerging issues largely affecting policy and how we can shape our policy framework going forward. And now more than ever, we are focusing on COVID-19 and the impact it is having on the Kenyan landscape, not just in one sector, but across varied sectors. And tonight we're delving into the subject of COVID-19 and technology. Kenya declared its first case of COVID-19 on the 13th of March 2020. This came just 4 months after the country had adopted the National Information, Communication and Technology Policy of 2019, a revised policy framework from the earlier one adopted in 2006. COVID-19 has presented a new reality for the economy at large and the ICT landscape in particular. Transactions have largely gone cashless. Interfacing is now primarily virtual. Remote learning is the new norm in the education sector. In the healthcare service provision, telemedicine is gaining traction. And as for businesses, e-commerce is moving from the periphery to the mainstream. How is COVID-19 impacting Kenya's ICT landscape? What implications does this have for the ICT policy framework of the country? What does it mean for the regulatory environment in light of the growing risks of cybersecurity? How are businesses coping with surging demand for internet connectivity? Now, to unpack this subject and to delve into these issues, I am joined by the Cabinet Secretary in charge of ICT, Mr. Joe Musheru, the Acting Director General for the Communications Authority of Kenya, Mercy Wanjao, the Chief Executive Officer of Safaricom, Peter Ndegwa, and finally, the Group Managing Director at Internet Solutions, Richard Hackle. Ladies and gentlemen, I should say, welcome on set, and I should remind our general viewers at home that you can be part of this conversation online by tweeting at NTV Kenya, at AmbokoJH, and the hashtag is NMG Leadership Forum. I'd like to begin with the CS Musheru, and interestingly, this comes just a short period after we adopted the national ICT policy. If you remember, November last year, we were quite engaged in this subject. And I'm just curious to know, when you look in hindsight, how well prepared was the policy framework at the time in light of the challenges we are now confronting in terms of COVID-19 and the ICT landscape? CS Musheru.
Thank you very much for the question and also for the invitation to be part of this panel and to discuss about technology. As government, as you know, ensuring that we have the right policy for both now and the future is important. So we took a lot of time in reviewing the policy. We had a lot of consultation with the public, all the actors that are required. In fact, I would say the main challenge we're having is how will we get everybody to start using technology on a day-to-day basis so that it's more important. And to some degree, COVID has boosted those requirements, where now we're mostly using video conferencing for our meetings, the use of the network infrastructure. Now we can see even the operators are asking for more bandwidth. We can see the broadcasters also a lot of usage. So in a lot of ways, we have seen that the policies we put in place are working. On the e-commerce side, we're beginning to see that the e-commerce companies that started now are actually seeing serious growth in their business. A lot of people ordering both local and international products. In a wholesale way, I think the policy is working. We want to see now adding layers of security, because as we add more and more services, then security becomes more and more important. Things like contact tracing have become very important. Again, most of that we're using technology to be able to trace where people are. Cash transfers are using technology to be able to ensure that even those people who are in marginalized areas are poor, they're not able to have the money that they need. As government, we're able to push to them. So a lot is working well, and I'm sure there'll be questions for me to give even more details. Thank you. Definitely,
and I'll be coming back to the issue of the policy, the ICT policy of 2019 shortly. But I want to move gears to Madam Mercy Wanjao of the Communications Authority. And the CS has already touched on the subject of security. And of course, with so much traction now going online and onto digital platforms, the question of vulnerability to cybersecurity attacks has, of course, gained prominence in Kenya. From the CA optic, how is this turning out?
Thank you very much for the invitation to join this conversation today. Indeed, with the entry of COVID-19, the experience of life as it was has changed in a dramatic way. When COVID-19 was declared a national pandemic, government directed that staff move and work from home. This meant that environments that were previously tailored for working on a manual basis, so to speak, eyeball to eyeball, had to migrate with people working remotely, being supervised remotely, and yet meeting the same service expectations as would have happened if they were working in the offices. This, I know, has posed a challenge for many institutions because the adoption to technology and working remotely happened very fast with very little preparation. Soon thereafter, schools were closed and children also came home and were learning from home. So that you find in the last couple of weeks, the way we live, the way we do business, the way we work is changing dramatically, and yet we have to adopt. And I believe that this adoption is actually for the long haul. We will be moving towards a new normal. But as the CS has said, that the policy that came forth in November 2019 is working well. I think it was a really game-changing policy because it looks like it looked forward, and some of the things that we had hoped for are now happening because of the push of the circumstances that we find ourselves in. And as a facilitator agency and guided by that policy, this is really a time for us to also step up and partner with our stakeholders in order to ensure that they're able to carry forward with the service delivery and that we're able to back them up with the regulatory resources that we have.
Madam Wanjala, some very good introductory points there. And just to take a rider from what you've just mentioned, Peter Ndegwa of Safaricom, Madam Wanjala has mentioned the issue of this adaptation is for the new norm. But there are concerns that COVID-19 has brought to visibility the digital divide we have in terms of the haves versus the have-nots. I'm curious to know, you're one of the biggest service providers in this country by way of digital solutions. How is the landscape like, and how do you feel this can be addressed?
Thank you, Julian, and thank you, my fellow panelists. I think everyone is right that COVID-19 has changed life as we know it today. It's changing the way we socialize, the way we interact, the way we work, the way we shop, and indeed, today's conversation, all of us working from home, is indeed an example of the change that we are seeing. It's affected everyone. There's no question about that. But you're right that it's affected the underprivileged a lot more. As an industry, as a telecom industry, we are an essential service, and our main job during this period is to keep Kenyans connected. It is important that we play that primary role, which is around ensuring that our networks are strong and available. Specifically speaking about Safaricom, we have invested over the years and we have coverage, very wide coverage across the country. And I'll give you just a few statistics. So last financial year, we invested 36 billion shillings to achieve 96% population coverage of 2G and 94% population coverage of 3G, which are mainly SMS and voice communication. The second is we have achieved 77% coverage of 4G, which is very important as we go into the data era. So it's important that communication companies like ours continue to invest. Indeed, during this COVID period, we put close to 400 sites on 4G across the country, so we have not stopped. The other element that we are working on is we know that investing in network is not enough. We need to make sure that the right handsets are available to our customers, especially as we go into data. We need to enable our customers to acquire 4G-enabled devices so that they can get better user experience. The second aspect of supporting, especially the underprivileged, beyond covering the population, is to ensure as education starts to be offered online, we ensure that every single pupil or student across the country can access. So we have zero-rated, Safaricom zero-rated websites that are supporting content for free. And the second thing is we are making sure that regardless of the type of phone you have, you can be able to access that content. The third point that I'll make is we have been participating together, working with the Communication Authority in the Universal Service Fund to make sure that we can reach 203 sub-locations across this country that would otherwise not have achieved network if it wasn't for the USF. The first phase is going on, covering 78 sub-locations. At Safaricom, we are covering 50, and we've already installed, we have already made installations in 40 of them. And then the second phase will be announced soon. So we believe that we are doing everything to make sure that no one is left behind.
Appreciated for those introductory remarks. I want to move to Richard, and Peter has just spoken largely about the accessibility of the relevant infrastructure in terms of accessibility of internet, but many would be keen to know about the affordability aspect of this. Now, you're in internet service provision, and just curious to know, what's your assessment of the landscape as it is right now in terms of affordability and coping up with the surging demand that we are now experiencing?
Yeah, well, thanks very much for having me on board with this panel. It's great to be here, Julian's. What we're seeing is a massive demand shift and a change in the demand curve. And only a few weeks ago, we were doing a 9-to-5 job in the office, and we've now gone from 9 to 5 to any time. We've gone from working in an office to working anywhere. We've gone from using company equipment and computers and laptops and that were provided to us to using any devices at any time and anywhere. What we're seeing is this demand shift going from company premises to people's homes, and we're also seeing that where people were hoarding information or storing their own information, that they're now sharing information through different collaboration tools. So we see this massive demand shift. And in terms of affordability, I think pricing has come down considerably over the last few years in terms of internet connectivity and certainly secure internet connectivity. And I think we continue to see that trend in pricing across the country as we see data, the demand for data increasing.
Thank you for that comment. I want to move back to CS Joe Musheru and going back to the issue of the national ICT policy. The first objective, if I could just read from it, it says that the objective of the policy is to create infrastructure conditions for always on access to high-speed internet across the country. I'm just curious to know in terms of the country landscape and how it is looking like as we speak, because of course we have just mentioned the digital divide that exists, especially between urban Kenya and rural Kenya.
Thank you again for the question. The policy is one that we are already implementing, and let me start by saying first, as government, we ensured that we have the international cables that are coming in. I think now we have about 5 cables, and that gives us more capacity than we need as a whole, as a country, in terms of just connecting to the rest of the world. With the national fiber optic cable that we have, popularly known as NOFB, we're now connecting all counties. We've done over 30 sub-counties, and hopefully before the end of the year, if COVID allows, then we would have done all sub-counties as well. And that means we are able to then work on the last mile. We have a last mile connectivity program as well, where we're putting in fiber. That is what government is doing. Private sector, where the regulator has also licensed operators, they've been rolling out fiber across the whole country. So when we look at the broadband strategy that has been put in place alongside the policy, then we're seeing a lot of growth in terms of the capacity. I can tell you that during this time of COVID-19, the strain on the networks has been very clear, but the investments that were put in place have allowed us to be able to have use of our technology. It hasn't actually broken in a lot of places. I recently had over 165 young people across the whole country on video conference where we were talking, and they were all from the different counties, so that we can look at how we take advantage of digital jobs. The infrastructure goes along with power, so that in places where you don't have power, then you have some challenges. And so you have seen as government, we are even licensing balloons, we are licensing satellite to ensure we have 100% coverage. The digital literacy program, which the president launched, and this is where we are talking of laptops for children, requires that every school and every child has access to the internet and access to a device that will allow them to be able to use. So we did that for the Standard 1 kids. At the moment, with the Ministry of Education, we're looking at how we can expand that so that every student is able to then have a device, and that's for the competency-based curriculum. Infrastructure comes along with the devices that would be needed, the training that is required. So all these things we're putting in place as government, but we want to see a lot more growth even in the private sector. And as you've seen, and as has been said by the two colleagues we have on the panel, their companies are continuously investing and growing. Recently, we've just switched on the data center at Konza. Again, that is connected both by the national fiber optic cable, but also with the Kenya Power cable. Kenya Power, on their lines, they've been connecting across the country. So I believe in terms of infrastructure and connectivity, we're moving very, very well. Use of the Universal Service Fund is allowing us to even expand this more and more. So far, so good.
Thank you, CS. And just quickly on that note, Madam Wanjao, the CS has mentioned that definitely there's a bit of strain on the networks for some of the service providers, and this is something which definitely falls under your purview in terms of monitoring and regulating the service provision. In terms of your assessment, ever since we got into this COVID-19 episode, how has the service delivery been like? Because of course we read your reports, and this is something which you normally flag every so often in terms of the quality of service being extended by the providers.
Quality of service is one of the biggest challenges at the moment, because a lot of the infrastructure was tailored for commercial use, if I may say. So you tended to find it in towns, in formal enterprises where people worked. But overnight, this kind of strain in terms of the traffic moved into domestic areas. It moved into homes as far as businesses were concerned, with staff working from home and children also spending quite a bit of the time learning. It also, the spike of traffic was also pushed because a lot of people also ended up spending time on media, particularly on video in the homes. The outcome of all this was a sharp shoot in terms of the traffic within the networks, and this could easily lead to a network going down. But I'm delighted that even coming 5-6 weeks after the COVID-19 incident and the sharp shoot in terms of traffic, the networks have remained resilient, they have remained robust, and they continue to carry the extra data, the extra traffic that this has generated. Part of the facilitatory role that we have continued to play is to request our licensees to examine the behavior on their networks, what the trends look like, and to open up discussions with us, perhaps, for example, discussions on the availability of some extra resources in terms of spectrum that can be deployed in the short term to absorb the extra congestion that is happening, and this way continue to assure the users of good quality of service and a good user experience. This has worked well, and we have seen excellent partnership coming through where, for example, the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development has continued to stream educational content for children through these platforms and to be facilitated through the exchange points so that the latency in terms of streaming that information is reduced and that the students are able to have some learning. As Peter said earlier, this obviously has opened up a new divide, because indeed those who did not have access to these networks now really are excluded a bit more. But we see this as a situation that only prompts the urgency and the great need to close these gaps as soon as possible so that we ensure that nobody is left behind as the country moves towards digital transformation, a cause which we are all very committed to.
Thanks, Madam Wanjao. And just to quickly get some thoughts from Peter Ndego of Safaricom before we take a break. Peter, the subject of working from home and, of course, remote monitoring has become a key discussion point. And many are curious to know, for a company, for example, as large as Safaricom, and in terms of the data you're handling, when you have staff working from home, how do you still ensure that privacy of clients' data is adhered to?
Thank you, Julian, for that question. I think it's a great question. You're right. We have seen a significant amount of increase in working from home. We, as Safaricom, we've doubled bandwidth for our customers who have fiber. As CS Moshero says, we've started to see benefit of that, and we are seeing that being used. And then the second thing is, of course, ensuring that kids can actually learn from home and using various medias for that. One of the areas that we have invested as a business and as a sector over the past 5 years is ensuring that customer data is handled well. We have a cybersecurity framework that we have. We have capable people. And we have a process of ensuring that our networks are safeguarded and we have clear line of defenses to ensure that we can safeguard customer data. And also, given the recent legal framework around data privacy, again, we have an internal understanding to make sure that we protect customer data. So I'm satisfied with what Safaricom has done, and we continue to invest and work with other sectors and also authorities, especially the CA and the Central Bank of Kenya, to ensure that customer data is safeguarded.
And that point by Peter Ndegwa takes us to our first break. Remember, we are still coming back with a lot more on this subject of COVID-19 and technology, including digital transactions and e-commerce. Stay tuned.
For a better tomorrow, don't forget to do the 1, 2, 3 with Colgate every night.
Smile through your day with a fresh breath and strong teeth.
Basic protective measures as guided by the World Health Organization. Clean hands frequently with soap and clean water. Cover nose and mouth when coughing and sneezing with a tissue or flexed elbow. Avoid close contact 1 meter or 3 feet with anyone with cold or flu-like symptoms. If you have fever, cough and difficulty breathing, seek medical care early. Avoid raw or uncooked animal products. Help the world put an end to the spread of respiratory diseases by sharing this message with a friend. Message brought to you by Sour Herbal Family Bath Soap. There's no debate. Home is best. If you must pay for deliveries, use your NCBA debit card. Stay home. Stay safe.
If we continue to behave normally, this disease will treat us abnormally.
Who wants to answer? Mary?
Mary has a toothache.
Oh, I see. And who knows why?
Because the tooth is too big.
No, it might be a hole in her tooth called a cavity. That's why I brush twice a day using Colgate.
Imagine this is your tooth and these are food acids that cause cavities. Colgate with calcium and fluoride helps prevent cavities
For maximum cavity protection.
and now available in a 12-gram sachet for fresh breath. Only 15 shillings.
Akiri, 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 akiri. Let's chase the germs away. Let's chase the germs away by keeping our hands clean. And when you want to sneeze or when you want to cough, do it in your elbow. Let's practice sneezing into your elbow. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Achoo! Again. Achoo! Yay! You did it! Germs, germs, germs. They make us sick. Germs, germs, germs are not our friends. Germs, germs, germs. They make us sick. Germs, germs, germs. Germs, germs, germs are not your friends.
With DSTV Now, you open up a world of possibility where your entertainment is ready for you anytime and anywhere. To get connected, ask your parents to go to the App Store, hit download and log in.
Incredible! Incredible!
And while they're there, with DSTV's parental control feature, setting you up for the most fun and safest viewing around is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Amazing entertainment and learning, anywhere with DSTV.
And a warm and hearty welcome back to the Nation Leadership Forum, where tonight we are focusing on COVID-19 and technology. Of course, you can be part of this conversation online at MbokoJH, at NTV Kenya. The hashtag is NMG Leadership Forum. We have been delving into a number of aspects, focusing on the policy environment as well as regulation. But now I want to raise an issue and really to start with Richard. There has been the discussion around we could potentially pivot some of the tech apps coming about to enhance services such as contact tracing, which is really pivotal at this point of COVID-19. Just curious to know what the panel thinks, and to start with Richard, in terms of the risks involved as well as the opportunities therein.
Thanks, Julian. I think there's opportunity here around capturing secure, real-time data that we can use then for insightful decision-making. And we are, as Internet Solutions, working with Microsoft and some other partners on an emergency response application that we can use to gather data from the field, from hospitals, from healthcare workers, that can be used by public and private sector to gather secure data and then use that data for real-time decision making. So this application is designed to look at resource allocation, what people are where risk is at the moment in terms of COVID outbreaks, what supplies hospitals have, how many beds are available, how many people are discharged, how many people are tested, that we would have a live real-time data stream across the country, across the continent, and globally, that people can make decisions. So, for example, if you have not enough ventilators in one hospital in one part of Nairobi, but another hospital does have them, then this data can be used by Kenya Healthcare Federation, by government, by industry, to look at moving equipment and resources and people to where they're needed. And that's something that we have been working flat out on with our partners, and plan to roll that out as quickly as we can. And the question of risk around data and data collection is critical, and all of our applications and everything we do, of course, is we make sure that data is secured, as we do throughout our whole customer base, and we have key contracts around our ability to store data and use data in a responsible manner.
Clearly, CS Musheru, the aspect of data and harnessing data in massive capacity is indeed some leverage, would afford this country some good leverage in terms of combating COVID-19. In terms of the viability of getting some of these tech apps to facilitate contact tracing, what is the government doing in terms of creating an enabling environment for the incubation of some of these sort of platforms?
Thank you again for the question. And let me say, we are hoping, if you look at what happened in 2009 in China when there was the SARS epidemic, companies like Alibaba, Tencent, and WeChat came up because during that time there was really demand for multiple services, whether it was payments, whether it was the logistics, and so on. Let me say that within the next month or so, we should have a new data commissioner. This will be the first time we have that office operational. The law on privacy and data protection is already in place. It was passed and signed passed by Parliament and signed by the President into law. So we are all set in making sure we have the right infrastructure, policies, regulations in place to ensure that now innovations can take place. We have been using the data that is available for the contact tracing. And even though there's been a lot of questions about privacy, we've ensured that we've done everything within the law. Where someone has already given us the approval on how we use their data, we have been able to ensure that if you look at how other countries have performed, I think we've performed well in terms of our contact tracing. In terms of innovations, we have two things that we've put in place already as a ministry, specific for COVID-19. First, through the Konza Technopolis, we have a challenge that we've set up, which is a hackathon, and many of these young people with their innovations and businesses can bring those forward, and we will walk them all the way to monetizing their businesses as we look at the different ideas. I have also set up and established a COVID-19 ICT Advisory Committee that is chaired by Mercy Wanjau, Acting Director General at Communications Authority, but also has private sector, has academia, has all the relevant people to look at many of the innovations that have been coming. We've seen innovations of ventilators all the way to the apps that you're talking about that are being used for contact tracing. But many of those will still require, the mobile operators will require collaboration. And so we've been seeing the collaboration and work happening between the different players. We established what we call an SDG Accelerator Lab with the United Nations and Silicon Valley. And again, we're bringing a lot of the companies there to support the many innovations. I think so far we have over 643 innovations that have been brought forward. And we will see how to package and work with the promising ones so that we can actually see many companies come out of this and, really enforce our position as a tech hub. As the Silicon Valley in the US, we are the Silicon Savannah, and we want to ensure that we grow and build that. And as I said, it's in partnership with many of the different players that are already in the market, and we are already taking advantage.
Madam Wanjau, if I could just pick up from that point, as we look at the upside that could be presented by some of this innovation in terms of facilitating efforts such as contact tracing, of course there's the downside of risks in terms of data manipulation, data theft and misuse of the same. This is something which falls squarely under your docket. How prepared are we as the Communications Authority in light of some of these innovations coming up?
Thank you for that question. I would say that the data protection law having passed in November and the COVID issue having come up very early this year was very timely, because now we have a framework. All that is remaining is for that framework to be implemented, as the CS has stated. Looking at the situation that is calling for the data as we speak, it seeks very sensitive data. For contact tracing purposes, it seeks to know who you are, where you are at a certain time, who you are with, And all that will suggest what it is you are doing wherever it is that you are. All this is very private information. And as we move towards contact tracing as part of the public health management infrastructure, some of the concerns that come up from a data protection perspective is who is collecting that data and what is the mechanism that they have put in place for the safety of that data. This data is likely to be useful within this season, and after this season, ideally should be destroyed. That indeed it would be destroyed, and that confirmation would be given that it has been destroyed. For the jurisdictions where we have seen usage of data in the past within a framework, one of the biggest vulnerabilities is where data sets are repurposed. So they are obtained for one purpose, but then are quickly turned around and used for something else, which the data subject did not consent to. And this is the big vulnerability that we are seeking to support in ensuring that even as the data is being used right now for humane purposes, for public health management, that there will be a safeguard at the end of this to ensure that that data is not then twisted around and used in the wrong hands for the wrong purposes. And I think we are taking the appropriate steps as we speak.
Indeed. And Peter Ndegwa, just to get your thoughts, when you talk about some of this innovation, of course, we normally have excitement around it, but the issue of scalability and the capacity to make it commercial on a large scale is where the rubber normally meets the road. I would like to know your assessment in terms of some of these apps coming up, in terms of facilitating some of these efforts, and how perhaps we can be able to monetize them at a commercial scale to work across the country.
Thank you, Julian. Great question, and I think my fellow panelists have talked about the importance of innovation, especially in tech, but also, more importantly, especially for contact tracing, ensuring that data privacy is adhered to and protected. So I won't go into too much detail on that. But in terms of scaling, as a technology business, we are known for innovation. We support a lot of developers across our system. We work with partners to ensure that we have the infrastructure. And also, we would ensure that whatever applications that are developed are used in the right way. I think the most important thing, though, is how our customers or the public actually views any of the innovation, because it will be an opt-in, voluntary or opt-in. It is more the communication of it and actually the selling the benefit of contact tracing so that it can enable this country overcome what is a big health crisis, and therefore we move forward and open up the economy.
Richard, your thoughts on the issue of scalability of such innovations coming up and how they can be deployed across the country?
Yeah, I think on scalability, obviously we're expanding our network as quickly as we possibly can. Last year we spent 500 million shillings on network expansion and making sure that more people have accessibility to the power of the internet. So I think what we are doing as a business, as an industry, is scaling up as quickly as we can and providing secure, cost-effective data to as many people as we can across the country. So in terms of scalability, it's all driven by this current demand and the demand for more and more data, and that's what we're trying to do is to meet that demand.
I want to move to CS Musheru, and the question here is, when you talk about the national policy on ICT, for example, one of the key things it delves into is the aspect of infrastructure sharing to at least enable the wider reach of some of the services which right now are quite critical but not reaching the extreme ends of this country. If you could just speak to the significance of this subject of infrastructure sharing at an industry perspective.
I think infrastructure sharing is critical for two reasons. One, as a country, we cannot continue to duplicate so that someone has fiber in town and everybody comes and they all dig up the road and they want to put fiber just so that they have their own. Technology now allows for people to separate their services and be able to independently provide, their customers the quality that they want. So it's one of the laws that is in place, and actually it's already being used by the operators. They're sharing this infrastructure, especially if you look at the mobile operators, so that the towers that are being put in different places, and especially if you look at the Universal Service Fund, where we're going to places that are not even profitable. There's no reason for every operator to put up their infrastructure there. They can actually share, so they're sharing on security, they're sharing on power, and even on the lease that is required, which reduces the cost of services to our citizens, but also provides the availability. We've seen the same, similarly, even on the broadcasting side. The operators and the broadcasters also are working together. When you look at the signal distributors, whereas before digital migration, this used to be every broadcaster builds their own infrastructure. Now with the signal distributors, and we have 2 that are open to every broadcaster, we'll be able to share, and we've seen the kind of growth in terms of radios, in terms of TV stations. So this helps us in being able to ensure we have a variety in terms of content. The consumer can be able to choose who to work with, and that competition really helps in terms of moving things forward. We expect to see similar infrastructure for security, so we are ensuring that the public key infrastructure, this is the certificates and security that people would have so that we can identify someone. As government, we have said, other than even the hard infrastructure that's been put in place, Huduma number is going to be one that everyone can actually use. A single source of truth, a place where anybody can verify that you are who you are. And so ensuring that we actually move quickly as a country in fulfilling the digital agenda that we're putting in place. So infrastructure sharing is very important, but all the way to even basic data, basic services that are required. And again, making sure all that is under the privacy and data protection laws that we've put in place, so that we're not putting anybody's information at risk, but we're able to scale and grow very fast. Thank you.
Madam Mwanja, we are in an environment where clearly a lot of transactions have been pushed onto the digital platforms. Right now, there's a lot of advice out here that we should not be dealing in cash because of the vulnerability in terms of transmission of the COVID-19 virus. And the question here is, in terms of monitoring how the general public is exposed to some of the risks which normally come with conducting transactions online, what is the Communications Authority doing, and what sort of trends have you witnessed ever since we got into this COVID-19 challenge?
Ever since we got into the COVID-19 challenge, things have changed dramatically. With the increase of traffic online, whether it be for financial transactions or for learning, working, doing business, cyber criminals have also caught on to the trend and are prowling the net. The Communications Authority of Kenya has one of its critical pillars, consumer awareness, and under this pillar, we spend a lot of time reaching out to key stakeholders and to consumers to inform them so as to empower them as they engage with the platforms, the e-platforms that are out there. One of the incidences we have noted is because of the move from the workplace to the home, you find that there is a use of multiple devices, and some devices that might not have the kind of security features that would be appropriate to support the services that it's being used for. And as a result of this, you find that there's an increase in a lot of cybercrime, phishing, hacking, and even children are increasingly being exposed to content that would otherwise not be appropriate because they're spending a lot of time online. So in response to that, we've really stepped up for our consumers and users in sharing information across our platforms, targeting the various audiences on how to best prepare themselves for this. For example, if anyone today has not participated in an online call, I would be surprised. There's a lot of time being spent online in virtual calls. But did you know that the online calls are also a shopping ground for cyber criminals, looking and searching for vulnerabilities, looking for sensitive conversations that are happening in spaces where, as it were, the virtual doors and windows are open, and listening in on them. So this is the responsibility that we have taken on to speak with our audiences on social media, as we are doing now on radio and the television station, so that the awareness is across the board, particularly because even after this, we do anticipate, with the kind of infrastructure that our licensees are laying, that there will be a lot of resources available. And we all need to be able to use these resources responsibly for positive outcomes. And this is a time to prepare and test our ability to engage on these platforms.
Thanks for those comments, Madam Wanjao. And that thought takes us to our second break on Nation Leadership Forum. We are focusing on COVID-19 and technology tonight. We'll be back with more, including the discussion around telemedicine.
Continue to behave normally, this disease will treat us abnormally.
I'm going to share with you some facts about coronavirus. Do masks offer protection against coronavirus? Masks can protect you from coronavirus, but only if you wear them correctly. And remember, it is actually an offense to be in a public place without a mask. Should you wear gloves to protect you against coronavirus? Gloves do not offer you protection against coronavirus, and that is because when you wear gloves, you actually increase the risk of transmission as you go about your business and as you touch your face and mouth during the day. Can alcohol consumption cure coronavirus? Alcohol is actually an immunosuppressant. What this means is that alcohol can lower your immunity and therefore make you most likely to get coronavirus.
Do your gums hurt? Yeah. Does your toothpaste contain sage, eucalyptus, myrrh, chamomile? All that in one toothpaste? Yes, try Colgate Herbal. Colgate Herbal contains nature's best herbs and Colgate's fluoride technology to give you strong teeth and healthy gums. Ah, Colgate Herbal. Let's go. Colgate Herbal for strong teeth and healthy gums naturally.
Welcome to the conferencing service.
Emma! Carry on, Ken.
First quarter sales, they're up 90%.
Very good. Very good.
We are looking at a 55 billion shilling profit by the end of the financial year.
Now we are talking. Here we talk billions. Very good. I gotta go. Wacha niendelee na kazi.
A person has left the conference.
Niko nyumbani. Downloads are very fast. Streaming, eco. And I'm just working from here. Stay connected and work from the convenience of wherever you are. Fiber to the home.
Working from home? No problem. Fiber Home has you covered with the fastest and most reliable internet speeds. Get connected today. Kazi lazima iendelee.
Take the following basic protective measures as guided by the WHO. Clean hands frequently with soap and water. Cover nose and mouth when coughing and sneezing with a tissue or Flex Turbo. Avoid close contact with anyone with cold or flu-like symptoms. Seek medical care if you have fever, cough, and difficulty breathing, and avoid raw and uncooked animal products. Help the world put an end to the spread of respiratory diseases. Message brought to you by Detrex Germ Protection Soap.
Selena!
Toto, where's mommy?
Today's a toilet day.
What? Oh.
Selena!
Toilet day?
Tomorrow we're hosting a party and it's a matter of my reputation.
It's a toilet, not a white shirt. Even if you spend your entire day cleaning with bleach and detergent, it still won't be party ready.
Impossible.
Challenge. Harpic 10X.
Even if you use bleach and detergent 10 times, they won't give you the same sparkling clean toilet that Harpic 10X will give you.
Wow! Harpic 10X.
Harpic, Kenya's #1 toilet cleaner.
Listen to me. I just found the money that Agatha took away from you. I'm going to give it back to you in exchange for my daughter's life.
Let's just leave this place, forget everything, and head back to the States.
Because of Erica. Will you marry me? You don't have to answer right now. I can wait, Erica.
No.
No. Where's the rest of the money?
I'm going to give you the rest of your darn money when you let Agatha go. You can take me with you in exchange for her. Agatha, just go already. Don't you dare hurt my mother. Do you hear me?
Before I change my mind. If I don't get my money after tonight, my dear, I won't hesitate to kill your mother.
Invest in Amani Ridge, the place of peace. Luxury you can afford. Call us today on 0790-300-300 or visit www.optivan.co.ke.
Disinfect and protect your home with Jik. Jik kills 99.9% of illness-causing germs. Disinfect floors, kitchen and bathroom surfaces and wash white clothes, towels and dishcloths with Jik bleach. Just Jik it.
The risk of illness-causing germs is increasing. It is believed that the coronavirus can remain on surfaces in your home for up to 9 days. Touching infected surfaces is one of the ways in which germs spread. Regularly disinfect your floors, countertops, and kitchen surfaces with bleach, and use an effective toilet cleaner inside and outside your toilet bowl. This message is brought to you by Medifact, Jik, and Harpic.
Birthday party! Birthday party!
Are we not invited?
Malaria! Mommy! Pest!
Rat!
Oh, die!
Party!
Compared to Northern Spray, Mortein Doom Power Guard kills disease-causing pests instantly. Mortein Doom Power Guard.
This is Fact Finder from the BBC.
A victim of revenge porn in Zimbabwe opens up about fighting shame and betrayal.
He sends me a message and he says, "Oh, if you don't come back, you know I have those pictures."
Campaigns marred by misinformation as the UK gears up for a fierce election contest.
And online all the time. But how did the internet start 50 years ago?
This is NTV.
Tonight, the coronavirus creeps along East Africa's trucking corridor.
Tuko tunaomba serikali yetu ya Kenya iweke mikingamo kabiti kabisa. Wengine wanasafirishwa usiku na ndio wanatuletea corona Kenya.
And it's now straining the region's sense of community.
As members of the East African community, we are in constant discussion with member states on how best this matter can be handled.
Also tonight, The WHO warns the coronavirus may be around for a long time as the global death toll soars. Plus,
I haven't finished, Shadrach. I was answering to you. Sorry, my son. Just be patient. Don't be excited.
All rise. Virtual court is in session.
My lord.
The wheels of justice zoom forward online. But it's a strange new world. And also tonight, all gassed up, but nowhere to go. Petrol prices drop by biggest margin in 13 years amid government's stay-at-home advice.
It's in times of great difficulty that we should always give thanks to those who are there for us. So, to all our customers who have been there for their friends, their families, those in need, as well as us, we'd like to say thanks. Thanks for staying at home and staying connected. We've got you with an automatic upgrade on us. A little gift from our heart straight to yours.
Melissa? Mom, it's Dad's birthday today. I'm giving him a party just like he gives me.
Nothing makes a mother more proud than seeing her child growing up. But I know that as she learns to care for others, she'll face even more germs and the risk of illnesses.
That's why you need strong Dettol protection. Just 1 cup of Dettol protects your home and family from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Growing up needs Dettol protection.
Welcome back. This is the Nation Leadership Forum. Tonight we are focusing on the subject of COVID-19 and technology, the opportunities as well as the risks that are being presented by this new challenge we are now confronting. And to just get back to the subject of cybersecurity, Richard, you had some thoughts around the threats which are emerging and how this can be circumvented.
What we're seeing at the moment is with this surge in data and demand for data, through our threat intelligence center that we have that is manned 24/7, we're seeing a 57% increase in cyber attacks, and I think this is because with everybody suddenly working outside of the organization, they're accessing their local area network or their systems and ERPs through unsecure methodology. And specifically what we're seeing is with this 57% increase is that the attacks are coming from internal, from within an organization. So I think the perception often is that cyber attacks are coming from outside of the country or outside of the business. But what we're seeing is this increase is really coming from inside businesses. And the form that it's taking is that people are mimicking the CEO or the CFO and using those emails to potentially divert funds, change the way banking is done, for example, the way payments are done, and that's something that that we are seeing an increase in and a risk to people who are not using secure VPN tunnels and MPLS systems to access their networks and their systems. So I think it's something that obviously we as an industry need to be aware of, and we provide solutions for that.
Quite an interesting insight there from Richard in terms of where the threat is coming from, largely internally, where people are trying to feign various personalities who are working within the office. I want to come to Peter Ndegwa, and before I hop onto the discussion around data pricing, the subject of telemedicine has of course gained traction ever since we had COVID-19, and the discussion around the COVID-19 and the nexus with technology. When you look at the opportunities of telemedicine, what do you see as the outlook? Is this the way forward? Is this a new norm in terms of dispensing of healthcare services is concerned?
Yeah, it's a great question, Julian, and there's no question that COVID-19 has changed the way things are, and health and provision of health services will continue to change significantly. There's a lot of learnings during this period about ability of health officials and doctors to collaborate using digital channels. So we believe that telemedicine will grow significantly in the future as an opportunity. There's an opportunity to ensure that people can get access to diagnosis through digital channels. There's an opportunity to ensure that people can save and be able to access health facilities through fintech as an example. And it is an area that we want as an organization, Safaricom, and we have been known to go for innovation, to look at this area and work with like-minded institutions and also the Ministry of Health to look at opportunity, and also other partners to look at opportunities to grow this area.
Madam Wanjau, before I get to the CS, if you read the Data Protection Act, which was signed into law in November last year, incidentally just came alongside the National ICT Policy. The discussion around how data is handled by processors in terms of when it comes to medical data is very well spelled out. Why is this particularly significant in terms of the sensitivity of the information herein?
The reason why medical data is very sensitive is because the state of health or parameters that go to assessing one's well-being are what would be called very, very sensitive information. And this is why extra effort was taken in the Data Protection Act to spell out this upfront, because often it is one of the data sets that is very attractive, particularly for purposes of science, for innovation and research. And we chose and opted to really protect it right up front. Also looking at the Constitution, the right of privacy and Article 31 is very well articulated, and the Constitution did step up to really shield this right of privacy, and health matters is very central to that. So it is anticipated that as this framework moves forward towards implementation, that it would drive a very close collaboration between the data regulator and the Ministry of Health and related agencies to come out with even more granular rules that would govern the establishment of these data sets, the collection, the storage, the destruction, and the application of the data going forward.
Thanks for that. CS Musheru, someone is asking online that every year we do a budget allocation for the Konza Technopolis, as it were, and many are curious to know how is this now playing as far as how that establishment is helping us to combat COVID-19.
A great question from the person. So the first thing I would say, maybe post COVID-19, they should visit Konza. It's not very far. It's about 70 kilometers from Nairobi. You will go and you will see the amount of work and investment that the government has put in. The horizontal infrastructure is already being done. The Konza Technopolis staff have already moved in. I was there even last week to see the work that is going on the new data center. So a lot is going on, but we need to see also local companies and business people investing in Konza. The Makueni Aka, this is a group of women from Makueni. They've already come in. They're in the process of investing. We have universities and many other people investing. But we need Kenyans to go and be part of this, not to wait until most of the stuff has been done, and then they come when the costs are fairly high for them, or there is even no space for them to come in. As regards COVID-19, Konza Technopolis or Konza themselves have come up with, it's called COVID-19 Hackathon. They've put 3 categories. One is healthcare, the other is food security, and the third is dignified jobs. And actually, if you go to konza.go.ke, you'll actually be able to get that information. The top 5 companies or ideas or innovations that win in each of those areas will receive 500,000, 400, 300, all the way to 100,000. But that's just a gift that they get for the hard work they had put in. Konza plans to then walk them through on how they will begin to monetize those ideas. So if the idea is about contact tracing, they will see how best to provide all the facilities that they need to be able to get that business working, whether it is linkages with the government, whether it's linkages with private sector, if they need data storage and processing, all that is going to be availed. So at least I'm expecting 15 innovations will come out of this challenge that will actually move us forward.
Great.
The twinning that we have done between Silicon Valley and Silicon Savannah is one that we will see take advantage of many of the other innovations that will come, so that we can grow the country in terms of ICT and ensuring that we'll be at the forefront in many areas. So that's what we're doing with Konza. It is going on well. Visit Konza when you can. You can also visit online. There's a lot of information that they've put on their website. Thank you.
Many thanks, yes. And Peter, there's a question for you. Is there a plan by Safaricom to revise downwards the pricing for data? Of course, for those who have covered Safaricom financials, we know that the data is increasingly taking a larger piece of the pie in terms of your revenues. But just to answer the question, is there a plan to revise prices downwards in light of how much we are now consuming data?
Thank you, Julian. It's a great question from the audience. Safaricom wants to make sure that data is accessible but also affordable. And I think one of the big things about making sure that data is accessible is to ensure that people can upgrade from what we call 2G and 3G phones to 4G, because with 4G, the user experience is better, the cost is usually lower. So as people use more data, we want to migrate a lot of the individuals from the 2 and 3G to 4G. So that is in terms of accessibility. The other aspect of accessibility is fiber. We have installed a lot of fiber, as CS Mushero has said, this fiber installed in the country. We have connected a lot of customers. We've doubled bandwidth at no cost since the COVID crisis hit. And we have seen significant uptick of that double bandwidth as people work and learn from home. I think the other aspect in terms of affordability of data is as volume increases, as the use of data increases, on the mobile side, we'll continue to review our pricing because as volume increases, we'll continue to review our prices so that we reduce the cost of access.
Right, and Peter, just to stay with you before I move to Richard, when we look at the push for digital transactions and cashless payments, definitely the reality is that about 9.8 out of every 10 transactions in this country on mobile money are on M-Pesa. What is the company doing in terms of optimizing this platform to ensure that it is, of course, being leveraged in this COVID-19 situation by things such as government cash transfers?
It is true that we, as a company, we need to enable people use less cash during this period. And one of the measures we took at the beginning of the COVID crisis is to zero it, that is to make free transfers of any transactions below 1,000 shillings. We have seen a significant number of customers, indeed about 19 million customers have used that facility for free since COVID crisis started. And we've seen an increase and less withdrawals within the M-Pesa system, which means that people are not going out there to withdraw. So we are already seeing the measure that we have taken, which is for 3 months until the end of June, bear fruit, and that is reducing the need to use cash. And the other point we've seen is we've also seen a lot of money, a lot of transactions, which is e-commerce transactions, and also airtime and data being bought using M-Pesa instead of using cash. So customers are hitting the need to avoid cash during this period.
Great. And Richard, in terms of your outlook, definitely we are indeed optimistic that there will be a post-COVID scenario. Never mind, today the WHO has indicated this situation could be thus permanently going forward. But in terms of outlook, and especially from the optic of data consumption, what are your expectations, Richard?
So it's a great question, and there's a fantastic saying from Charles Darwin that says it's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but those that are most responsive to change. And I think it's critical that we as the industry and in Kenya respond to this change. And if ever there was a bigger catalyst than COVID-19 is it. So technology is then the enabler to the change that is going on in the country. So I think the outlook, there's a short-term outlook where I think all of us, large, small companies, are focused on cash and cash flow and making sure that our clients are secure, our cash flows are secure, that we can meet our SLAs and our contractual obligations to clients, to make sure that our staff are also secure and looked after, and that we're enabling everybody to work from home. And that we also provide other solutions to our clients when it comes to social distancing. So, for example, we have an amazing partnership with USIU where we have a work area recovery space. And it's really a second office that people can go to enable and help social distancing where people may not have the office space. But the outlook as far as we see it, short term is tough. And then we need to be ready for economic recovery and change the mindset again around how we capture the growth of economic recovery. And then, you know, Kenya is a very resilient place, and we have a resilient population. We've been through difficult times before, and the outlook, as far as I'm concerned, is very positive in the medium and longer term. And we just have to find ways to capture that recovery really, and meet the new demands. There's no going back to what was normal. It's going back to what was abnormal, and the way we now work has changed forever, I think.
All right, and just to get some closing thoughts really from Madam Wanjao in terms of the regulatory framework and the whole landscape in terms of safeguarding those ones who are going online.
This is a commitment that we continue to uphold because, as has been said, we expect that the online presence will only increase and the applications will also increase, so that it shifts from just doing business and learning and working, that we will find even government to citizen transactions, we'll find health transactions online and the like. Incidentally, today the ICT fraternity globally began the celebrations for the World Telecommunications and Information Society, and this provided a moment for all of us to pause and reflect on the role of the internet and information communications technology as far as they come to serve humanity and the issues that could bring benefit and value to us. As we see it here from the regulator playing a facilitative role, we think that this COVID-19 situation will be a platform for leverage for businesses, a platform for leverage for small and medium enterprises as we get into the economic recovery zone, to be able to use technology as a springboard for better times as we go into the future. And we are happy and very willing and committed to back up that commitment through regulatory facilitation, so that coming out of this situation into the next phase, that we are able to really come out stronger and better, and to leverage on technology even more, so that we are able to reap the dividends that it continues to present to us.
Appreciated, Madam Wanjao. If I could move to CS Musheru, your closing thoughts very briefly.
Thank you again, and thank you for this forum. It's been great to discuss with Kenyans and with the panelists about how we can leverage technology. I saw the Law Society. They had elections, and those elections of theirs were digital, as in you can vote electronically. My hope is that through this COVID-19, we are going to find a way of ensuring that even as a country, we can now go digital and we can actually vote from the comfort of our homes. I know last year, the last election, one of the questions was if we can use M-Pesa for sending money, which is important to people, why can't we use even similar platforms for voting? So there are many things that are going to change in our lives. COVID-19 has come and introduced, the hygiene system is improved. We've seen less people going to hospitals for the various reasons. And I think my hope is that we're going to see many new innovations and businesses come out that are going to help us first. The meetings we always had as a government, and you all had to go to places, per diems, the cost, all those costs are being reduced now, where you can actually go on a screen and be able to efficiently communicate and come up with decisions and be able to move forward actually very fast. So those opportunities are there with us. COVID has not gone in terms of the, if you look at what's going on and the directions that the Ministry of Health has given, we must be very conscious that people are losing lives globally and even in Kenya, and we must take care of ourselves even as we look at all these new changes and these new lifestyles that we're going to have. So mine is to say, stay safe. Asanteni sana.
Appreciated. Peter Ndegwa, your closing thoughts very briefly because of time.
Julian, thank you. And my closing thought, I'll just take over from where CS Bushero has left, which is we need to make sure that we all follow the instructions that government has given us to make sure that we stop the spread of the virus so that we can reopen the economy soon, because we know that a lot of people have lost jobs, and also food will become, availability of food will become a problem. In terms of technology, we are a technology company. Our promise is we'll keep the country connected, but also we'll support the recovery process, and especially for the small and medium-sized businesses, which are an enabler of this country. But also, I want to reassure our customers and the public at large that we'll be with you through this period.
Many thanks, and that has been our conversation tonight, focusing on COVID-19 and technology. I want to thank our guests, that is the CS ICT Joe Musheru, the Acting Director General for the Communications Authority, Madam Mercy Wanjao. We've had the CEO of Safaricom, Peter Ndegwa, and finally the Group Managing Director for Internet Solutions, Richard Heckle. We really appreciate your contribution. Our sign language interpreter has been David Agondoa. Thank you very much. Up next, we have the news with Smriti Vidyarthi.